So this is a video for the synoptic that's just happened this year in 2026 for the level 2 electrical installation. I've been teaching this a few years now and students continually make the same errors in regards to the planning and preparation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the synoptic and I'm not going to show you how everything's done, but I'm going to show you the process that you should be following to get the maximum amount of marks. You only have 6 hours, and quite frankly 6 hours is nowhere near enough for 90% of students to actually complete the task. But if you manage your time well, you can show us that you can do every single thing inside of this practical assessment. And that's what I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over the time management and what you need to show us and what we're looking for. So, this is what you get at the beginning of your assessment. You'd have walked in, or you'll walk in to something similar to this, and I'll put it on the screen in a second. But you've got your practical synoptic and what you've got to build, and it's got to coincide with your design and planning element in task 1. So make sure you're doing that. If you come in and you go, right, I'm going to do a ring circuit, and I'm going to have an extra 3 or 4 circuits, whatever. If you've said you're going to do a radial and you've decided to do a ring, that sort of thing is going to go against you. So make sure you're referring back to your planning and how you said you were going to do this originally. So for my students, I don't know what your situation will be. This year, they got given a pre-cut length of tray, which doesn't fit dimensions. They've still got to cut this to size. And a length of conduit. Now this length of conduit has a thread on 2 ends. So if they're smart, and if you're smart, you'll think about how you're going to use that thread and save you some time. But the first thing I want to say is, and I've seen it quite a few times now, is the students come in and they often want to get stuck into the biggest bulk of it. And in this synoptic, the biggest bulk really is the conduit work that's going to come up, go to a 16 amp isolator plug, commando plug, and also does our one-way lighting, which will be over here. Now, nothing wrong with starting with the conduit. However, conduit takes up a lot of space. We've got a few vices in the workshop. We had 4 pipe benders. We don't really have the space for any more. Now, we had quite a few people at one point doing the synoptic. There were 2 of us, so we had 10 people running it at one point. Now, about 8 of them decided to do the conduit, which is nothing wrong with, but they did get caught up. They did get stuck waiting for equipment. They did end up losing our time. And beforehand, we told them, manage your time, see what other people were doing. So if you are doing a synoptic like this, and you go, I want to start with a conduit, have a little. If 1 million other people are doing conduit, then you're probably going to want to get started on something else. I personally, this is just how I like to work. I personally like to sit there and get everything marked out and measured, and that allows me to just get stuck into the work, pick up a tape measure, get your pencil, get everything marked out, get everything sorted, and then you can just get on with it. You're not bouncing around between tools, double checking if things are right. You've done it all.
So this is
the
synoptic for the 2026 level 2 students. A few things to note first. These things outlined in red are the bits that will already be on the wall. So we've got the copper pipe, consumer unit, plasterboard, the timbers holding it on, and the metal adaptable box. At any point in your assessment, you are not allowed to take these off the wall. So these have to stay in situ the entire time, unless you make some sort of mistake where you accidentally break something. You cannot remove these off the wall to complete the work. So let's start by looking at these level lines. These level lines here show what's level. So we've got the metal adaptable box here, which is expected to be level with the bottom of the tray. And then if we look at the top of the consumer unit, it's expected that the 16 amp plug, the light switch, and the top of the sockets will all be in line with the top of the consumer unit. And then the conduit, the conduit boxes, and the pendant or light, whatever you're using, will also be all level along that line. There's no measurements on this drawing because each centre will have their own measurements based on the space available and how many people they've got going and things like that. So bear that in mind. Make sure you're following these level lines. You will have measurements to follow, but the level lines also matter. Let's start with the tray. The tray down here is going to be supporting the SWA and our twin and earth, which is supplying our circuits. Remember, this SWA is, does it say anywhere? Metal adaptable box to represent supply. This SWA is not its own circuit. It is supplying this consumer unit. So this is the incomer here. This metal adaptable box here is representing maybe another consumer unit where this SWA is a submain. Got twin on earth going along here, supplying our cables, our sockets. And also out of the consumer unit, we're going to have our earth bond, which wants to be in 10 mil, ideally. And then from there, we're going to have conduit coming up. So depending on your consumer units and where you're at, you might end up having to do a double set, or you might know it as a dog leg to get into this board and make it look nice. But ideally, you won't need it on anything else. So with the conduit, if we read this bit here, metal conduit with threaded conduit boxes. Unthreaded conduit systems may be used at boxes or accessories, but not both. So for our students, we had these conduit boxes here as conlock, but the students were still expected to have a threaded bit of conduit for the light switch, the consumer unit, and the 16 amp IP44 plug. So there's a mix of both going on. If you've got an option, I'd think about how you're going to do it. If you are going to make the boxes threaded, you've got twice the amount of threading you need to do. So if you've got a choice, make your life easy. But we're coming out of the consumer unit in the conduit. If we head to the right, we're going to drop down for our one-way switch. And then we've got a light here. And if we head to the left, we're going to have a 90 and drop down into our 16 amp IP44 plug. Off of that, not attached to it, but off of it, we're going to have a commando plug just connected into any sort of adaptable box, whatever your center's using, to simulate a 3.5 kilowatt pressure washer. So for this bit here, you're wanting to wire up the plug socket and the plug.
So what you're seeing now, believe it or not, is every single position that I need to have marked out. So I've marked out positions on my dry liner sockets, a little bit off, but I can see that. I can account for it when I can cut it out. I've marked out the position of my tray. So this will be where my angle bends, my prefabricated bends finish, and then I'm going to bring the tray up a certain amount. I've also, these lines here, and there, that is where I'm going to put my uni strut, so that's where I'm going to mount. I took a level line from the top of the consumer unit. That level line took me straight across here for my level line of sockets, and it also took me along here for the level line of my 16 amp commando plug. These little bits here are the boxes on my conduit. So I went up from the knockout here, the centre knockout I'm going to be using. I went up 400, exactly there, and then measured across centre to centre to centre. So 400 here, draw a level line across to 30 on this one, and then across 300. And then my 90 is 300 away from the centre of this. So I've gone on this way as well, measured 300. That is everything I need. There's a few extra lines on here because the students already used this bay for their job. Whoever was in it, you probably can't tell what bay I'm in, but if you're watching this, you're out of tolerance. So that's another thing. It shouldn't be happening, but if you're going in as someone else, don't trust what they've already done. It could be wrong. But I know I've seen this before, and I've got vast amounts more experience than most of you students. This took me 8.5 minutes. So, it's going to take you more time than that. Even if it took you 20 minutes to line everything up, get it all on. But that's the sort of guideline. With someone level 2 coming to the end of the year, I'd expect them to get everything marked out within 20 minutes. And what that does is it means you can just crack on. I don't even need to pick up a pencil anymore. I can just get on with it. If I want, I can double check my measurements. I'm not going to, you might want to, but I don't need to worry about where things are going anymore. I've already done it. And worst case scenario, even if I'm wrong and I start the conduit and then I realise I've cut the conduit wrong and I've already done the double set into the consumer unit, you might be better off just continuing, because it takes so much time to rectify that. If you're out of tolerance, you're out of tolerance. But the last thing you want is to be within tolerance, but you haven't finished what you could have done and you haven't shown us the skills you can do. So, bear that in mind. My advice, even if you're only marking out one bit and then getting on with it, really focus on the marking out, get good at it, get fast, and it will save you a lot of time and make your life a lot easier. So, this is the cable tray done. I don't need to do anything more than this. I could do more than this, but that's for a separate time. I'm focusing on your time and getting things done for the time being. So, when I say I could do more than this, we could actually dress these into the wall a hell of a lot nicer. But I'm not massively concerned. That's not a massive skill that you can show me, so I'm going to skip it. I've snipped the tray here just to be able to bend it in, make it look a little bit nicer, make our cable entry look a little bit easier for us. That's all I'm going to do. The main things I'm looking for are, is it secure and is it level? It's a little bit tricky. One thing I did do is get these on first, and I got a little bit lucky, but you probably want to get the tray cut first, get it put in place, and then see where you're putting these. Because if I put this here, for instance, I wouldn't be able to get it on. I'd have to move it. So that was an oversight from my part. I got a little bit lucky doing it. You might not. But is it secure? Is it suitable? There's no sharp edges. You saw me filing them off. And it's ready to go. There is one thing I'm going to do actually, if you want to really show your skills. So what I've done there is I've just snipped the side of the tray and folded it up. I was going to try and file it down and actually bend it off, but the tray's already on the wall. The wall's getting in the way, it'll be a bit of a ball ache, so I'm not going to do that. I've just snipped it, lifted it up, filed off the sharp edges. That's important. And then what that will allow me to do is bring my twin and earth from the consumer unit all the way around up to my plasterboard sockets. This tray, all in all, I would expect realistically about 15-20 minutes at a most. So the next bit is SWA, and I'm going to go through this with you because this is something all the students struggle with, and I can have students do it in 2.5 minutes in the workshop. I know because I've timed them. So they do it for 2.5 minutes, and it comes to the synoptic, and it will take them half an hour. And I haven't worked out why. So I'm going to go through it with you. We're going to get it done, and I'll show you how quick you can make it if you don't faff around. Depending on your workshop, these might already be pre-cut. They weren't for our students this year. Easiest way, get the gasket, go on, see where it stops there. Get my side cutters.
Unfortunately, at this point, I think my GoPro got too hot during the recording and stopped working, so the footage was ended up a bit corrupted. But if it had been working, you would have seen me completing the SWA, cutting out the boxes for the sockets and wiring the twin and earth, as well as the SWA and securing it to the cable tray. Additionally, I prefix the conduit boxes and the adapters, which, as you'll see going forward, makes measuring a lot easier when it comes to measuring out for your conduit.
I'm only going to make off these 2 sockets. If you can show me, or your tutor, or whoever's looking at it at the other end of the sitting guilds, that you can make off 2 sockets, you can't get top marks if you don't finish. But if we've seen you do 2, we know you can do the rest of it. So bear that in mind. Pay attention to where I'm at the moment. I have finished nothing, but I have still shown you what I can do. So I'm going to go make these sockets off now, and then we'll move on to the next bit. So that's the sockets on. That one's a little bit wonky, but going tolerance. I've done an SWA gland. I've done my tray. My tray work's finished. Everything's secured on it. Cables going to the sockets. So actually, we're at a point where, although it doesn't look like I've done a lot, I can mark you on every single one of these things. So I'm able to mark you on your gland. I'm able to mark you on the cable tray. I'm able to mark you on the securing of the cables, the clipping. I can mark you on the sockets. It's not finished. None of it's finished, but I can mark you on it. So that's where we start getting the marks. If you produce the work, I can mark you on it. If you don't produce it, I can't mark you on it. Yeah, I've got 2 more sockets to do. You've already done these 2. I don't need to see them again. If you don't get the time to finish them, you may not get a distinction, but I can still see that you've marked these. One thing I'll go over very quickly, hardly anyone does it, even no matter how many times you tell them, get your long nose, check your connections. It's no good giving them a tug with the finger. You can get a certain amount in there. Use your long nose. You don't want to come in the day after having done this assessment and you come in and look at your work and you've got loose connections all over the place. You'll know you have messed up. So, check your connections. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start cutting the conduit. And how I like to do it is actually, I'm going to take all my measurements and I'm going to go cut it all in one go. Because that way I can just be in one place. I can cut all my conduit to size, I can ream it how I need to, and then I can come along, make sure it fits, and put any threads on it that I need to do. Rather than one bit at a time. I see a lot of people and they'll come along and they'll measure one bit, and they'll go off and they'll cut it, and then they'll walk all the way back. And they're just going backwards and forwards. I'm going to take all my measurements, I'm going to write them down, I'm going to go cut. So I'll have sped that up, but that's probably taken me about 1 minute to get all of these measurements. Because I already put these on the wall, I marked out, put them on the wall. I haven't got to fanny around trying to work out what's what. That's already on the wall. I can just do that. I can measure between this point here and that point here and how long it needs to be. And this bit here, where I've got the double set, or the dog leg you might have heard it referred to, I'm going to be putting a bend in there. So instead of measuring from here where I want the thread to go, I'm actually just going to go straight down to the consumer unit. Because when I put that bend in, I'm going to lose some of the length. So what I'm thinking is, I will do a dog leg or double set with that length all the way. I'll come along and check it, make sure it fits, stick a bit of thread on the end. Some people really measure it accurately and perfectly. Some of the staff here can do that. I can't. I'm more of a domestic installation. I've not done a lot of conduit. But that's the way I do it, and I can do it with minimal wastage of materials. So, got my measurements, I'm going to go do that now. So, first, let's check everything fits. Ooh, might want to take a little bit off that one. Again, I'm just going to take 3 mil off. This one. That's good. This one. That's good. And then the double set. Thread's going to go up to there. I've well overdone it, but that's not a problem. I haven't had to measure it exactly. There's some people out there that might want you to. I'm not fussed because actually I line up how I'm going to have it on. So the thread's going to go there. That's now overhanging. I can see where I want to cut my conduit. So I'm just going to go cut it. People might say it's a waste of materials. I'm going to argue, I don't know, what's that, 1.5 inches worth of conduit that's being wasted in that? I ain't going to mark anyone down for that. Some people might, ask your tutors. I'm not personally fussed. So, one thing a lot of people forget is saddles. Now, you can make your life really easy. A lot of people make it a lot harder for themselves doing this. When I was marking out, you can see I did a line all the way across, all the way down, little one there, all the way down, pretty much all the way across. That's because it makes my life so much easier when I'm putting saddles on. It's so much easier. If you ain't got these lines, everyone puts them off centre. I've got my lines. So all I need to do is measure where I'm going to put them. This one, because I've got my double set, I'll probably put it somewhere around here. However, here, nice roughly in the middle. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to go there. This one. There. Right, if you get unlucky, or unlucky, I should have checked my materials. That is a factory made end. Not ideal, that. Don't know what, I'm going to have to redo this bit. That's annoying. I'm not. I took it to the vice, still don't look good. Took it to the vice, just went round, made it slightly more round, and it just about fits in. He says. Very tight, but we'll get there. Something like that happens, make sure to tell your assessor. May not entirely be your fault, and it might actually be quite an easy fix. That, I lost a minute, as opposed to having to redo the whole lot. So one thing nearly everyone seems to struggle with is running cables through the conduit. It is really easy if you do it right the first time. It is so tempting to get your cables and start trying to poke them through, because if it goes right, you've saved yourself a bit of time. However, 98% of the time, 99% of the time, it's going to get snagged up and it's going to go wrong. So, you can get draw tapes, we've got some of them here, or get yourself a bit of draw wire, grab it out the bin, or even just grab a bit off the roll. I haven't marked my students down for that. And you're going to put this through. Fold a little edge over, just like that if you want. Squeeze it a little bit, and what that does is when it gets to bits like this, where there's a bit of conduit that it might get cut on, it's not getting on a flat edge. So if it hits that, ideally it will hit the lip and it will push upwards rather than actually hitting it directly. So make your life easy, get yourself a draw wire, poke it through. I'm going to go from the light. And I'm going to go from the light. Now I'm going to go to the switch first. I don't actually care how my students do it, as long as it's wired up rightly. You can go to the light, go to the switch first, 3-plate method, neutral through the switch. It doesn't bother me. Some people might have a preferred method, some people might have told you a way that they want to do it. I don't really care. And then I'm through. See how easy that was. Next. We're going to get our cables, and I recommend staggering them slightly like that. So you stagger them a bit. Ow, who did this? Get your tape. Tape them all together. Go to your draw wire. Take it on. Pull and feed. Keep a bit of pressure on this side. I've just got the weight of my arm, and then a little bit like that. And look at that, I'm done. I'm where I need to be. You can pull that off, get your cutters. Done. Done. See how easy and quick that was. Camera's been going 3 minutes and I've been explaining it to you. I know you have to get all the bits and get set up. It's so much quicker and easier to do it properly the first time round than hope for the best. And then we're going to do the same again. And that is your lighting done. That is 5.5 minutes that took me. I have seen students spend 45 minutes on this because they haven't listened in lesson about the easiest way of doing it. Again, I know I've got more experience, it doesn't take me as long, but even if that took you 10 minutes, that took you 10 minutes. So I've just made off the lighting circuit, and this is where I want you to start thinking about what you're going to be doing. Now, well, I say I want you to start, we've been doing that the entire time. We've got a few things we can do now. Obviously we're not completely finished. I've got this 90 to do with the commando plug. I've got the earth bonding that needs doing. I've got a couple more sockets I can make off, and I've got an armoured gland that I can make off. So, and I've got the consumer unit. So there's a few things here going on, and this is where you're going to start going, what do I need to do? And from an assessor's point of view, the least important thing, believe it or not, from my perspective, is actually this. I want to see it done. I at least want to see a 90 by the end, but in regards to, say you're running short on time, I want to see the earth bonding and something in the consumer unit done to show me that you've got some understanding of what happens inside the consumer unit. So, I'm going to do the earth bonding while the gubbins of the consumer unit is out and it's nice and easy and nice and empty for me. And then I'm going to wire up the incoming supply. Remember, this SWA is the incoming, it's not a circuit. I'm going to wire up my sockets and my lights. Because again, it may not be finished, but in my point of view, you showing me, say you've got an hour left, you showing me what goes on in here and how you wire it up and how you do it safely is more important than you showing me you can bring cables through a bit of conduit, which you've already done, and go line neutral earth, which you've already done at the sockets, you've already done it at the lights. That is much more important to me, what's going on in here. So, I'm going to do that. I need a grommet for that bit. So it's a new day, hence the change of shirt. A lot of students I found got to this point, and actually if you did get to this point and you'd done this quality, you could do okay in the results. But we're not quite finished yet. I'm going to go over very quickly, just finishing off this 90, bringing some cables into here, and then I think that will be it in regards to actually completing the work, other than a commando plug. I'm not going to make that off. But yeah, I'm going to do the 90 and have a little discussion about each bit. So that's it, synoptic's done. I don't need to do any more than that. Run out of 6 hours. If you get to this point in 6 hours, it's easy to go, I didn't finish it. But remember, you've shown me everything you need to know. If you have any requests for any individual bit in future or anything I went over that you'd like more information on, drop it in the comments. More than happy to do it. If you've completed this assessment already or something similar, you might have done something similar a few years ago now, depending on when you're watching this. I'm happy to discuss elements of it, but I do have to be conscious of City and Guild's requirements in regards to feedback. So if you ask me a specific question, I can't tell you how you did, but I can show you in a video a good standard or something, and you can make that assessment off of it yourself. So yeah, any questions, anything you want me to go over, I will be releasing a series of videos going over each individual element. But if there's anything specific on this you're not sure on, you want more details on, let me know and I'll see what I can do.